this thing is so freaking long. And this lens is extremely expensive. I better get all these set up before my dad tries to kick me out.
8 days, that was all I had.
Hello, my name is David and welcome to my YouTube channel. As I'm currently in the final year of my bachelor studies in music, which I have to prepare a 40 to 50 minute public recital in order to graduate. In the coming few video episodes, I'm going to document my preparation, my practice, rehearsals, and also what happens on my graduation recital day. So please subscribe if you haven't.
8 days before the recital, and it begins with a problem.
In this first episode, I'm going to set up a photo shoot for my graduation recital poster. Hey, why didn't you go out and find a photographer to take the photos for you? Oh, that's because I feel very anxious and awkward when someone's watching me posing for the photos. Let's start with setting up the backdrop stands.
In Hong Kong, doing things yourself is not always considered the rational choice. Hiring someone else, a professional, is the expected one. But sometimes the most honest decision is also the most solitary.
I've decided to use 2 autopoles instead of light stands since I have limited space at home. After installing the first one, then I realized that I need to unbox the other components in order to determine how wide apart the second post needs to be. Let's unbox the other stuff.
The plan was straightforward. The execution was going to be slightly more complicated.
Here are the chains. Here are the expansion sticks that fit into the backdrop row. Here's the counterweight that stops the paper backdrop from unrolling all the way down. Here are the hooks that hold the paper backdrop and the support tube that fits into the paper backdrop.
The aluminum support tube comes in 3 separate sections that screw together on site. It sounds straightforward. It mostly is. Mostly. When you open a backdrop that had been sitting in a warehouse for however long, it releases a small amount of 2.72 meters of seamless paper in a Hong Kong flat on a Monday.
After some figuring out, I finally finished assembling my paper backdrop setup. Let's have a look.
Everything in this shot is assembled by hand in a Hong Kong living room on a Monday afternoon in May.
I have purchased this aluminum backdrop support tube to help minimize the chance of my paper backdrop from sagging or creasing from extended use and storage. I've learned that I should actually store my paper backdrop vertically when not in use, but the floor height of my home here isn't tall enough. The best I can do is to use this aluminum backdrop support tube and just leave it on the rack. Because this seamless paper backdrop is so long at 2.72 meters, I literally almost end up having to carry this 6.8 kilos of heavy backdrop up the stairs several tens of floors. For the color of my paper backdrop, I have chosen a neutral gray color that closely resembles to an 18% gray card here. Now to the new lens. Before I go to the shop to buy the 85mm lens, I'm going to buy a UV filter for the new lens. This filter serves two purposes. First, as suggested by the name, it filters the UV light that may cause bluish haze in photos. And second is to protect the front glass element of the new lens from minor accidents such as scratches. So let's go.
The 1st of May, Labor Day in Hong Kong, while most people had a day off. I was in Mongkok buying a filter for a lens I hadn't bought yet.
要2張啊嘛，係咪？好多張就一樣㗎。好。
The 85mm focal length is widely considered the most flattering focal length for portrait photography. For a graduation recital poster, that matters. I checked every element of the lens before I agreed to buy it. When you spend your own savings, you check everything.
邊個 focal length 最多人買？
最多人買通常35，係35.4嗰啲最多，係啦，跟住50.4之後就到你次啦。
1.2唔多人
1點少啲嘅，
因為貴。
同埋你未必用得盡啊嘛。
係啊，
你其實拍嘢都知啦，1.4都夠啦。
個 filter thread 大。
係啦，好啦，多謝你。
Thank you. I've purchased this Sony 85mm f1.4 G Master Mark II lens. With the 85mm focal length, I can render my portraits in the most natural and flattering proportions. By the way, I bought this lens with my own hard-earned money, and it is not sponsored by Sony or any third party. Since I need to focus more on my recital preparation, I've planned to shoot another video about my video gear setup and my new lens once I've completed my graduation recital. So please subscribe for those videos. Let me now get changed and start shooting the photos. So this is what I'm wearing for my photo shoot.
In a flat in Hong Kong, somewhere between the bedroom and the kitchen, a studio. The 85mm lens that had been purchased 4 days earlier was now being used for exactly the purpose it was bought for. Some decisions are that simple and that expensive.
Since I'm shooting the photos myself, I have the iPad mini that connects to the camera through an app.
A poster made by one person in a living room 8 days before the stage. It was the work of someone who had decided if he was going to stand in front of an audience, he was going to choose every detail of how that afternoon was presented, including this. 8 days became 7, then 6, and eventually there was a recital hall to fill.